Four sets of B&B owners have stayed in each other's places
It's like Pat Butcher's earrings.
and judged one another.
I'm really quite shocked.
Impressed, you mean, not shocked?
No, I'm shocked.
I'm the only true alpha male here.
Today, with all the visits over,
I think to give you two, I was being very kind.
I think that was a little bit of an insult, really.
the payments
I think the strategy is to always underpay.
and the winner are revealed.
The winner is...
With four in a bed, did anyone get a good night's sleep?
I just thought it was a complete joke. I mean, I don't know if she thinks she's the Queen or something.
It's the final day in the competition, and the rival owners are meeting for the last time to discover what they've been paid and to settle some scores. Teeing things off is Gaynor Walker.
Right, here we go.
She hosted first at the Nateby Inn in Cumbria,
Hello, my name's Gaynor. Pleased to meet you.
where Bob and Georgie soon made themselves at home.
Oh, yes, that feels comfortable.
But Graham and Julia spied an intruder,
It doesn't bother me, but there is a cobweb up there.
and Andrew and Claire had trouble fitting in.
It's small. More than 2 nights in here might be a squeeze.
Come feedback, Gaynor almost cleaned up,
Give a 10.
Yeah.
but not with everyone.
There are just 2 tiny cobwebs above the bed, but that really doesn't bother me.
How clean was Nateby Inn? A 9? No, I did expect a 10.
I don't think Gaynor appreciated our feedback at all.
If they have to be so pernickety, then they obviously couldn't find many faults anywhere else.
Now they're face to face, Gaynor wants to get the measure of Andrew and Claire's room issue.
How did you sleep at Nateby Inn? A 9.
It just felt a little bit claustrophobic.
When you go to book it, you can actually choose to go into a Super King if you wish. I wouldn't describe our rooms as being claustrophobic. They are quaint, but I definitely wouldn't describe them as being claustrophobic.
Next, Gaynor tackles Graham and Julia on their cobweb encounter.
I was actually very, very shocked to see that because we do thrive on being absolutely spotless when it comes to our cleanliness.
I saw them out the corner of my eye, but they really don't bother us.
So is that why you knocked a point off?
Yeah, just 1 point for that.
If the cobwebs didn't bother you, how come you took a point off?
Because they were there, and it may bother somebody else.
If they didn't bother you, why take a point off? I'm not being difficult, I'm just
Purely
wondering.
because they were there.
OK.
I was quite surprised at Georgie's sort of outburst. I think they're missing the point. If you're scoring on the cleanliness, that is a cleanliness issue.
His reply to me was that it might bother someone else, but this is about how Julia and Graham feel about the room, not about, oh, someone a year down the line might find 2 cobwebs.
Now Gaynor can see how she fared in the payments, starting with Bob and George's £90 room.
40, 60, 80, 90 pounds. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it, thank you. Bob paid me in full, and I think Bob's that type of person where I would imagine Bob to actually overpay everybody because he's just that type of lovely person.
Next, it's Julia and Graham's payment for their £90 room. Self-catering cottages in Bedfordshire.
Hello!
Bob and Georgie quickly bedded into their room.
I bet it's comfortable.
But in their cottage, Andrew and Claire weren't going with the flow.
Bathroom is very nicely designed.
Yes.
It's just a shame that the water pressure is a bit weak.
And at dinner, Julia's joking didn't tickle Gaynor's fancy.
I was operations director for a software company.
Were you like a troubleshooter?
If there was problems with the software, if there was problems with the business, I could fix them using the software.
I thought that was a little bit disrespectful, more to Georgie, because to me, you wouldn't do that to a guest.
At breakfast, Gaynor wasn't bowled over by the crockery.
There's your porridge, Gaynor.
My porridge was served in a bowl with a chip in it, and if I was at home, I wouldn't have had it.
The only one that gave us any real criticism was Gaynor. I think she was clutching at straws a little bit.
And Graham and Julia want to deal with those criticisms first, starting with why Gaynor didn't see the funny side.
Great hosting, taken a point off because Julia's joking was a little disrespectful at dinner.
So was it the snoring?
Yes.
All right, OK.
When Georgie was speaking to Graham, I thought it was a little bit disrespectful.
I know exactly what you mean, but it actually, I was still laughing about Graham and one of his, you know, elongated stories. It wasn't in any way meant for you.
I think Julia was disrespectful to Georgie. She says she wasn't, but I think she was, otherwise I wouldn't have said that.
Now Graham's got a chip on his shoulder about Gayna's breakfast feedback.
Only lost a point for a chip in the bowl.
I don't like to go to places and find, if I get a bowl and it's got a chip in it, I would normally not even eat out of it or drink out of it because I'm so fussy.
But a cereal bowl that's got a little chip in it, you honestly wouldn't eat out of it.
The amount of germs that are transferred through chips is absolutely, you would not believe it.
I just thought it was a complete joke. I mean, I don't know if she thinks she's the queen or something. Do you handle cash?
Yes.
Cash has got more germs than a loose seed, honestly.
Yes,
but you wouldn't eat out of a chip bowl. Sorry, I just think that's really over the top.
Good old Georgie. You know, who would not actually eat out of a bowl that's got the tiniest little chip out of the pottery?
I was a little bit surprised, you know, that Georgie found me being a little bit harsh. But chip crockery, to me, is extremely important.
Now Outfields Farm can see how they fared in the payments, starting with Andrew and Claire's £120 cottage, plus a £5 per person supplement for breakfast.
60, 80, 100, 125.
That's £5 less than the asking price.
And do you mind telling me why you've underpaid us?
Not at all. No. I think the main reason was actually the shower and the water pressure. We both agreed we would take £5 off.
Absolutely, we need to look at that.
Next, it's Bob and George's room in the main house at £65, including breakfast.
40, 60, £70. So you've actually overpaid.
I regret it now.
Thank you very much indeed.
That's an overpayment of £5.
I thought it was very good value. I thought £65 was cheap.
I mean, it was my absolute dream of a bedroom. I loved it.
Biggest surprise of the day is that Bob and Georgie overpaid, which is an absolute delight. I really didn't imagine somebody would.
And finally, Gayna's £85 cottage, plus a £5 supplement for breakfast.
40, 60, 80, £85 in total, so...
Bloody hell, that's too much.
It's my money now. So, Gayna, you've underpaid by £5 there. Do you just tell us why?
It was just overall. It was nothing, one thing in particular. It was just the whole sort of thing.
Pleasantly surprised that Bob gave us an overpayment.
Yeah.
And both of the other underpayments are really just token underpayments.
With Ammonite Lodge and Nateby Inn both holding back £5, and At Home overpaying by £5, Outfields Farm receives 99% of the total bill.
I think all the other three competitors have a strategy. And I think the strategy is to always underpay, but not underpay to such an extent that it looks as though they're playing a game.
It's the final day of the competition to be crowned Best Value B&B of the Week. 2 sets of owners have already tallied up their payments. Next up is the week's third host, Bob Osborne.
OK, it's the moment of truth.
On arrival at Home in London,
Hey!
Bob!
there were no big surprises for Andrew.
My first impression of Bob was scruffy, very clearly anti-establishment, laid back. I think we got him pretty right, actually.
But not everything was coming up to scratch for Gayna.
Oh, my God, that's minging. The things I was really worried about telling Bob was the cleanliness.
Next morning, Bob's no-show at the self-service breakfast was a no-go for Graham and Julia.
This guy gets up at 11, does what he wants. We could never operate our B&B in the same way that Bob does. That's just not in our DNA.
At feedback, Graham and Julia didn't sit on the fence.
More like a hostel more than a B&B.
3.
Yes, dear.
And when it came to the crunch, everyone was singing from the same song sheet.
I wouldn't stay here again.
It has to be a no.
Sorry, Bob.
Sorry, Bob.
I don't really care what their opinions are of my bed and breakfast. I'm full up most of the time. You know, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
First, there's a stain on his reputation Bob wants to take up with Gaynor.
So how clean was at home? Got a lofty 2.
I think to give you 2, I was being very kind.
Actually, I'm delighted with a 2.
Exactly.
There isn't a mark for 0, so I could have broken a record on that one.
You know how fussy I am. I think Bob knew he didn't stand a chance about my level of cleanliness, so I don't think I will have offended him because he knows what I'm like.
Gaynor is definitely the harshest critic there. But you were going to say?
But Julia and Graham are not far behind her.
Next, Bob's got a bone to pick with Julia and Graham.
How was breakfast at home? 5. A Bobless breakfast. A Bobless breakfast, does that mean you didn't have Bob for breakfast, or...?
Yeah, he did come down and see us. We want to see
If I'd been
you.
on the menu, would you have been happy?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
I want to see more of you.
Why?
Because we're entertaining. So interesting.
I mean, why'd you come to London and stay in a bed and breakfast and want to hang around the host all the time? I feel as though that I'm being penalised for being such an interesting person. I think they got muddled thinking on that. 5 and 2 makes 37.
That's £8 off the asking price.
You didn't get much more as a room goes for the single to what you did in the double. That's what I felt. The reason I underpaid was because the single bedroom was a lot more per person than the double bedroom.
Gaynor has proved to be